Go ahead, put it on real tight. Hope you brought your best tonight. They say they got the fireworks, yeah, they say they got the show. Here around the chutes, you're the best, so let's go.
This is Texas Toast. I'm your host, Miss Helen. Kick back and enjoy as we toast the best from Texas.
Everyone, welcome to Texas Toast. I'm Miss Helen, along with this is going to be such a good visit. I'm looking forward to it. We're kind of going to call this one of our bottoms up episodes because I'm bringing in a fellow radio broadcaster, fellow podcaster now, and then someone who's also going to talk a little bit about booking. So without any further ado, I want to say welcome to Carly Evans, who, by the way, is Texas Regional Radio Music Awards Broadcaster of the Year. Hey, Carly.
Hey, Helen. Thank you for that awesome intro.
Well, it's so nice to have you. So your journey, how did your journey take you into radio?
So it actually started when I was still in high school. Not officially radio yet, but there was a TV station at my high school. And I started getting involved with that and taking the classes and then being on air with them and just kind of fell in love with broadcasting. I can't remember, it was either right before my high school graduation or right after. I had a friend who was working at the local radio stations. This was in Hays, Kansas, my hometown. And he said, was asking me what my plans were. And I was like, well, I'm going to go there was a university there in town. And I was going to go through basically the broadcast program, the media studies program. And he said, well, why aren't you working at the radio stations here? And I was like, I just hadn't thought about it. And I go, don't you have to be 18? And he's like, no, because I was only 17 when I graduated. And he's like, just get me your stuff, which I didn't have anything. I didn't have stuff yet. And he's like, but I'll get it like give me your resume, which was like Gadzooks and KFC and Golden Corral, at the time. And he's like, I can't promise anything, but I'll get it into the right hands. And I was like, cool. And ended up getting hired on as a part-time night and weekend board op, and then moved up to on air, like fill in, and then started doing a weekly show, took over one of the weekly request shows that one of our stations had. And then from there, just, got to be a main day parter, worked my way up through college. And when I graduated college, I was named program director of one of our country stations. And then it just, it went from there, like, because you know how it is when you get in a radio, it gets in your blood.
Yes.
You either hate it or you just fall absolutely insanely in love with it. And so from there, I went and ran a station in Manhattan, Kansas, and then Bryan College Station, Texas with KORA. And then my now husband, he had moved to Texas with me. We had met in Manhattan. He got transferred to Colorado for his job. And I had always worked in some facet of Texas country and red dirt, with radio. And so I was like, there's not going to be a station like that in Colorado. And guess what? There was. And so I started working with them and eventually became program director there. And so that's the story of radio. I can keep going if you want to hear like how I transitioned to other stuff.
Oh gosh, there's I know you're like me. There's just like so many stories you could tell. And, and it's like, it's just that community involvement, and you get to know your listeners so well. And then you get to work with great people like your music promoters that are calling. And then when the artists come through for their radio tours and you see them for the first time, and when you know, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was, one of my most favorite parts about being in radio was establishing, growing, maintaining those relationships with the promoters, with the artists, with, some of the venues and stuff, and taking music calls every week. It's basically like catching up with your friends,
I know. I think about when I was taking the radio, the music calls, it was like, and at that time, that's when my kids were young, and they knew what volleyball game was going on, what football game was going on. Like, how did y'all, fare on? I mean, it was like, you would just keep up with each other's lives.
Mm-hmm.
In
Absolutely.
a sense. Yes. And so now, you are officially out of radio now. You're podcasting with the Troubadour Experience.
The Troubadour Podcast. Yeah. And I joined that. My co-host Pete had started it already, and I had been a guest on it. When we moved up to Colorado, again, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to be doing. I didn't really have a job, which for the first time since I was a teenager, I didn't have a job. And So he had asked me if I wanted to join. This was 2018. So we spent the better part of that year kind of revamping some things, and then, relaunched it with the two of us. And so we've been going with that since, I can't remember if it was late 2018 or early 2019. We've been doing that. And then, then the radio station, we ended up moving from Fort Collins, Colorado to Colorado Springs. And I had been working remotely with them, but I got more involved with the radio station when I started doing that. And I did leave radio at the end of 2021 to pursue a digital marketing, what I thought was going to be a career. Turns out corporate can be a very toxic environment. And so I loved the job, didn't really like the place. Long story short. So I left there, and I actually am back in radio. I had already been talking to some people, some other stations about like voice tracking, but I have one of my best friends who we work together in Manhattan, Kansas. She's now out here running an alt station in Colorado Springs. And so she asked if I would be interested in part-time. And, you can't ever fully get away from it. And so I still loved radio. I just didn't want it to be my primary focus anymore. So that's actually been really cool. And it's kind of, expanding my horizons a bit too, like still super involved in Texas country and red dirt and independent country. That's still my number one, but being able to learn, a new genre and new artists and all of that has been great too.
I know, it's amazing how radio just keeps chasing you. Same thing here. And it's like, I'm just constantly like, because I wear so many different hats like you, and I do help at the radio station, but then they just had a transition and a change, and they were wanting me all the time. And it was like, once I got out of that studio and the stick, as I called it, because the podcast was like, I wasn't sure about this podcast thing. And Kyle and I have talked about this, and if it wasn't for Kyle, I probably never would have jumped into the podcast thing, because I was like, oh, I'm FM, I got to have the stick, I have to have my coverage map and all that. Right. But I am loving it.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's like an extension of radio, but also we get to do these more long form, deeper dive interviews than what you do on radio. Cause usually a lot of times you have 5 minutes, 10 minutes,
yes,
and you have to keep it like we're promoting a show, we're promoting an album, we're promoting a single.
Exactly.
Yeah. And here we get to know people better.
Yes, that's the whole thing. It's all about the guests, and they get that time, and we get to spend that time together and not worry about, oh, I've got this spot break coming up, or I've got to do this live read or whatever. So let's talk about, so you're kind of, all right, so you're like me, passionate with the red dirt, Texas music, independent music. And so let's talk a little bit about, you're also kind of putting on another hat with booking.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so that was when I was leaving the corporate job, it had become so toxic, and I was like, I got to get out. So I was talking to friends about, ideas, like one of them being my friend at the radio station, the alt station. But another one was a promoter friend, one of my really good promoter friends that I've known for years and worked with for years. And I was just like, do you know of anything, or what do you think, or this is what's going on with me? And she's such a doer. And so right away, she was like, look into this. And one of the suggestions was Chuck Sweeney with Marathon Music Group. And Chuck and I have known each other for years as, professional acquaintances. We hadn't known each other super well, but we've worked together before. And so we got in touch, and it worked out where he brought me on. And so now I'm focusing primarily on Will Carter, Susan Ammons, and Zach Neal. And we have others on the roster too, but those are especially as I'm getting into this, and getting my feet wet and used to booking and everything. So focusing on those three, and it's been awesome, because then I get to still work with the artists and the music that I love, and work hard and be able to establish relationships with venues outside of my market. too.
Yes. And, going back to Will, it's like I've known him from the very, very beginning, but I didn't realize that I'd really known him since he was 3 years old, because
really?
Because Will has connections. We have hometown connections to my hometown. And he tells a great story. It was one of those stories that always stuck with me when Will first came in, when he was baby Will, just starting out with his little hair sticking up. He's so cute. But I tell you, he is quite the worker. So what a blessing to get to work with Will.
It is. And I've known Will for years. From I first met him when I was PD in morning show and at KORA and Bryan College Station. And, we've just continued that relationship over the years. And so now working with him, working for him directly, yeah, it's awesome. Just
So
love him to death.
So let's talk about this. So since you're kind of fresh into the booking and you've got a good little roster there that you're working with, because I know there's a lot of people that have been booking agents forever and ever and ever, and they could be a little grumpy, crusty, grumpy, and it's
Yeah.
like you're fresh. So what are you seeing as far as the positives with working with venues and festivals to where you're working in these particular artists for booking?
So positive, there's a lot of positive, especially when you get that yes and you're helping build that artist's career, because I've gotten to do that from the radio side, but kind of being more in the trenches and getting those yeses and stuff. It's such a great win. I'm still learning like the best ratio of phone calls to emails because there's so many venues that are like, why are you calling? Don't call me. Email's best. And then others are, completely the opposite. Like really like phone calls and text messages are way better. I never have time to check email. So, I think overall it's really getting to support these artists and help grow their careers from a different angle of things than what I'm used to.
Yeah. And see, I think that's where you stand out and you make a difference, because some people haven't been, like you said, in the trenches and met some of these artists from the beginning, watching their music career, and then now being able to book, because some people are just booking, and it's a number. But I love what you said about building a career, and that's a partner booking agent that artists need.
Yeah, I completely agree. Cause there's, I've also have started dabbling a bit in the talent buying side of things too, working with booking agencies on the other side. And, I'm not naming any names because I don't want to upset anybody and I don't want to burn any bridges by any means. But, I do see kind of that jaded aspect of things from time to time where they're just like, well, we're not chasing this, festival or this venue. So, we're not going to do this for you. If you want to give us an offer, fine. We may or may not get back to you type of thing, or, just stuff like that. So I don't want to get super detailed into things, especially since they're still in progress. But it's just like, I just want to give you money to bring your artist to this stage. That's all I want to do. I want to give you money.
Right.
So,
and then the logistics can be quite a bit too, once you do get the booking and advancing the show.
Yes. And, and that's something I think I got a little, I tend to dive in head first sometimes into things and, or like right away, I'm like, I want to get them shows here in Colorado and I want to get them, in Kansas and blah, blah, blah. And now taking a step back and after having done this for it's only been a few months, but, since mid-April, it's like, oh yeah, you have to factor. Yeah, you got them this great show, but how are they going to get there? And the routing and all that stuff. And there's definitely been some days I've ended just cross-eyed, like
right. Your head just exploding.
Yeah.
It's like, can I just wait? And then it's like, can I just go turn on the mic and talk and do a break and then sit back and jam?
Exactly.
Talk a little more.
Can I just focus on that? Add some music, like go and listen to music to figure out what I want to add this week, stuff like that. Like, oh man, what did I do? So there's definitely a learning curve with it for sure. And, the only way to figure it out is to do it. So
yes, I'm sure you'll figure it out. So how are things going with the podcast?
They're great. We're Kyle and I here with Texas Toast had a great conversation the other day, and it kind of reestablished some ideas. Because when you're doing a podcast and you're getting these amazing guests, but if not a lot of people are hearing it, that doesn't really help anybody. Or if it's not able to sustain itself monetarily, like not even necessarily making money off of it, but just able to pay for itself. Because there is such a huge expense that can come with hosting a podcast. And so we're working on some ideas for, revamping marketing and monetization and things like that. But as far as guests go, I do feel like we've really gotten our name out there over the last 3 to 4 years. We've had some guests that I never would have thought, we would have had. Ray Benson, Ray Wiley Hubbard, The actor Barry Corbin has been on, and just countless others. Pat Green, Bree Bagwell's been on with us. Just so many. There's times I go back through the episodes and I'm like, I forgot we had this person on. And
I do the same thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're like the newbies, we're the new kids, and it's like going into this, we had no idea, but I knew Kyle and I think alike. And
Yeah.
I knew, and we just went into it and just moved forward and pushed forward. But it's so great because I was out of radio, for a few years, and it was so nice to link back up and hook back up with, friends in radio, the Texas artists, and being able to see their faces, and then now to be able to visit with them. So it's really, it's a lot of work, the prep, but Kyle and I are a good team. I really,
Yeah.
Kyle, you want to turn around and visit with us?
You chime in on this?
Kyle, turn that chair around.
This is weird.
What do you think? What do you think? You're the voice judge. It always reminds me of that. So Kyle,
I'm
this
chilling,
is
taking notes.
interesting. I know Kyle and I love to tell a story about the podcast, and he has a lot of knowledge as far as like doing our behind the scenes here at the podcast. It's amazing how you can go from so many different backgrounds and come into a podcast, but the thing is what's in your heart, and that the Texas music and getting the word out and spreading the message. And that's kind of what we're here for.
Totally.
And when Kyle and I first met via a Zoom, I was totally, no podcast for me. I don't care what you people say. I love that man to death that put us on the Zoom meeting, but then it worked.
Yeah, I remember the call that I had with him right when we got off the Zoom, and I was like, oh, I don't think I'm going to swear. This isn't going to happen. And here we are, 2 years later.
Yes.
I noticed a trend between the three of us and a lot of other people in the industry. And it's like, sometimes people spread themselves too thin, but I guess maybe we're the type of people who are really good at that. I mean, we're not celebrities by any means, or, super rich or anything, but it's, we've all got our hands in a lot of different pots, and we're making it work, keeping ourselves busy, doing things we love.
See, and I think what we're doing here is a good example of our Texas music family. I mean, this is how it is. Like when we go to the awards, it's just hugs and high fives and catching up. And it's just like, it's like the friends that you don't see, but then when you see them once or twice or 3 or 4 times a year, it's like you've been together every day.
Yeah, it's always all home week at those for sure. And you talking about spreading yourself too thin, like, because I know I get so excited about all these different things, and my husband's great about reeling me back in a little bit, not saying I can't do it, but he's like, it's kind of like the Ron Swanson advice on Parks and Rec, where he's like, don't half-ass 2 things, whole-ass 1 thing. And so like my husband's really good at reminding me of that. Like, don't take on 2, like, calm down. It's like, maybe don't jump into that yet. Let's focus on building these other things at first, and then you can, expand from there.
Yeah. When Carly and I met, and Bree had a show in how do you say it? Manitou?
Yeah.
Manitou Springs, and she was up on stage helping us wrap cables after the show.
I love being a roadie.
That shows your drive, and we appreciated it for sure.
Absolutely. I hope I got things in the right place in the next show. Y'all weren't like, who the hell put this here? Like, sorry, it was me.
But it takes a lot of teamwork, and it takes a lot of networking. So you've got the booking going on, the podcast. Are you going to take in anything else?
Probably eventually.
You're scaring me.
But right now I'm trying to, the talent buying was kind of my extra on top of all of that right now, because it's the same but different, it's kind of the same vein, but whatever. And so right now I'm working on that. And then we have 2 dogs. One is a foster, so I've been trying to find time to train him, and also still, have time for myself to like make sure I get a workout in, which I'm horrible at. And I'm trying really hard to be better at just stopping and making some time for myself to do that kind of stuff. And obviously spend time with my husband. Like, we've both been so go. He's also, he's a construction project superintendent, but he's also an artist too. So he's working on that side of things. And then we have this old 1901 house in Colorado that we're constantly fixing up. So we have plenty of stuff going on that we just finally got on Sunday, our first hike. We live in Colorado where hiking is everywhere. Our first hike of the year in, because it's been so crazy. We finally had to like stop and be like, we're taking the dogs. We're gonna go on a long hike. Hopefully we can get some camping in here soon too. But yeah, so with all of that, I think it's enough for right now, but I'm sure eventually I'll be like, oh, that looks cool. Cause I was like trying to do a blog and stuff a while back and create this app. And I finally had to let that stuff go. You know, it just got to be too much with everything else. So
wow, you do a lot. But getting out in Mother Nature, that is mine is fishing and getting out in the salt water and getting out on the bay, and especially when it's a good day to go offshore. But it's like same thing with me. I stay so busy, and plus we live in a tourist area here on the coast, and we have a condo resort here that I'm managing a couple of the condos and keep them rented with the VRBO and all that. But I love it because it's hospitality. I get to meet people from all over.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of people that come, like from Austin and Abilene, and then they'll be playing Texas music, and then we start engaging in that conversation, and I'm like, okay, I need you to look up this person, that person, and I'm still selling it, girl.
I know.
I'm meeting, or if
it never goes away.
If I'm at the harbor at the cleaning tables and somebody plays a song, I'm like, whoa, have you heard it? And I start going through all of it. It's like it's just in your blood, and you just want to get the word out.
Absolutely. Like Austin Mead, when he was opening for Seven Dust, and so I got to finally introduce my more rock people, especially my metal friends to, even though he's gone more into the rock vein for sure than the Texas country vein, but I was like, he's my friend and he's so amazing. You got to check him out. He's opening for Seven Dust, and and that opens their ears a little bit more. But I know it never stops. My husband and I are constantly telling our friends, like, you need to look into this artist, and and that's why like the majority of my wardrobe is band tees, because it starts that conversation too. Like,
yes, it does. I used to love getting all those t-shirts. I don't get so much now,
right?
And I wish I would have saved so many because I've had, I don't know how I've missed and lost some of the stuff that I had, but I think back to some of the originals from some of the originals, and it's crazy. It's crazy.
I have this idea that someday I'm going to get a t-shirt quilt made for the band shirts that I still love, but I don't wear anymore, because maybe they've gotten a little too small or something like that. But yeah, so I have them all in my cedar chest, like in space saver bags, just waiting for the day that I finally, stop procrastinating.
That makes me think of something else too. That was another positive about working in radio, because let's say you ever had an accident on one of your shirts, because I always did morning shows. And then needless to say, I would have a meeting or something.
Coffee everywhere.
We always could go find a shirt.
Yes.
You just go to where all the tubs where everything is and the promo items, and like there was always something to wear, and always a ball cap.
Yep. Ball caps and t-shirts, and if you needed a koozie, you usually had
always,
one of those too.
Isn't that funny? This is another thing with another positive with radio. You always could get dressed no matter what.
Yep, absolutely. That's why, again, the majority of my wardrobe is like station and band tees. Like a lot of my station tees that I can't, it was a huge part of my life. So they're going to go in the quilt too someday when I get that finally made. So
yes. So will we be seeing you at the Texas Country Music Awards? Are you going to be there?
There is talk. I'm hoping to make it work out. Sorry, like I got so excited there because so I've been talking to, I don't know if my husband's going to be able to make it. I'm really, really gonna try to make it because I miss my people.
I know.
I'm so glad I got to make it to T3R this year, and definitely the husband and I are planning on making that a yearly thing for sure. I've never gotten to go to TCMAs. So I would love to go. I have friends up who like we all do, I'm sure you do, friends up for awards and stuff. So that's always so exciting to get to be there to celebrate with them. And
yeah, it was a blast last year. Kyle and I were both there. We did red carpet interviews, and then I'm going to be doing red carpet interviews with TCMA this year. But when I was at the Texas Regional Radio Music Awards, I think I remember Corliss pointing you out to me. And you were, and Corliss was like, "That's like you need to meet her." And then
I can't believe we didn't.
You know how I can't either. We maybe we're in the same circle at one time, I know it's like, and then you're just jumping around from person to person. But I remember
You
Corliss
are.
was like, come on, you have to meet her. You have to meet her. Troubadour Podcast. And, Corliss, I love her. I can't wait to see her. I cannot wait to see her.
I love that girl. She's one of my, again, we met in Manhattan, Kansas. We're both from Kansas, and we were competitors actually when we became friends. But she was the ring bearer in my wedding last year and stuff. So I love her. She's one of my most favorite people. But I know it's hard when you're at those things you get to meet so many new people, but then you have so many people that you haven't talked to in a while, and so many, necks to hug and stuff. So it's hard, but yeah, hopefully if I make it, we'll definitely have to get together.
Oh, we will,
on this
for
one.
sure.
Yeah,
for sure. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed the visit. I have a new friend now. At least we got to meet. I can't wait to meet face to face.
Same.
But
I think it's gonna be awesome.
Before I let you go, let's talk about where everyone can find your podcast.
Absolutely. It's the Troubadour Podcast. So the troubadourpodcast.com. Also on, I believe, Facebook and Instagram. Man, you think I'd know this by now. After all this time, let me double check that it should be the same at the Troubadour Podcast. And then on Twitter, it's weird. It's like TTP1 or some weird thing, but Instagram and Facebook, and for sure the troubadourpodcast.com on that. So, okay.
And then one last question. If you were a cocktail, what would you be?
Oh, goodness. Wow. That's how I love like all types of booze. so that's hard. Like, God, there's so many ways to go here. I feel like I've thought about this before, and I'm sure it changes. Like some days I'm an old fashioned, and then some days I'm a Bloody Mary, just because, with a little bit of spice to it, but those good old staples. Overall, I think it would be like a standard, like something more exciting than like a rum and Coke, maybe. But yeah, probably like an old fashioned, a Bloody Mary, or depending on the day, like a nice martini.
We're like so much alike. We're so much alike. Because if I tell you, if I was ever asked that question, I would be going there right there. Well, it would depend on the day.
It depends on the day. Some days I'm a mimosa. Some days, I'm some fruity, ridiculous, fluffy thing that costs like $20.
Oh my gosh. Well, how much fun was this? Hang in there with everything you're doing and stay in touch and let us know how things are going. And hopefully we'll get to see you down the road at some point. So thank you so much, Carly.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Helen and Kyle. And I really appreciate the time and you guys having me on. This has been awesome.
It's been fun.
And with a heavy tongue, she knew where I was from. As she left, I dared to say, well, you can go to hell. Hell, I'll go to Texas. I've had my fill of every place but home.